Welcome to the Delvin Cox Experience, the podcast in which each week I am on a one-man mission to unite our country through diversity. I'm your host, Delvin Cox, and with me on the podcast is a special guest who's been here before. Let him know who you are, brother.
My name is Country Boi. I am from The Cut, one of my Black History podcasts. Basically, like him, I'm out here trying to get my message out here. So I'm out here teaching people Black history, learning Black history every day, one day at a time.
That's a great way to explain it. Before we start, as always, we like to start the podcast off with the 5 for 5. Five questions, 5 answers to get the ball rolling. Country Boi, you ready?
Yeah, let's go. Question
number 1. What is the best album you listened to this past year?
Oh, man.
Now, this should change because the last time you was here, you gave something different. But a lot of new stuff has come out that may change your opinion.
It had to have been some like Griselda or Freddie Gibbs, some Currency. I mean, that's really all I've been listening to. It's like old people cocaine rap. Like that's my thing. That's my lane. So, oh man, the album, like, and this is probably I think Alfredo came out last year, but the album that
it counts as this past year. I will allow it.
The album that Gibbs had with Currency. Him and Currency together is probably my favorite, with like running neck and neck with that and Alfredo and Burden of Proof with Benny. Like all 3 of them albums, man, those things, I can just put those in rotation. Those are fire.
I like it. Question number 2. What is your favorite color of KoolAid?
Oh, wow. See,
I said color, not flavor.
Oh, shit.
If you're from the hood, you know what I'm talking about. I
mean, I like red. I like red because that's the OG. That's the one everybody knows. That's what we grew up on. But just say this with just a grain of salt. I grew up middle class, so I didn't have all that much KoolAid.
So you had Tang.
No, I had 5 Alive, and I mean, like, shit, it was cheap, but we never got to KoolAid levels.
Oh man,
so when I got KoolAid, it was a treat. KoolAid was a treat for me. Like when I got it, like, oh, we got KoolAid. I never.
So you never had to put like a gallon of sugar in the KoolAid and stuff like that?
No, I watched my aunt make it a couple times, and I was like, I don't think I just supposed to make that. Like, that don't look right. Like that's got to be too much sugar, and it's because it's a cold beverage, so it doesn't the sugar don't blend properly. It just settles at the bottom. That ain't right. It's not right, Mom.
Well, you can answer this question. This was a fiery debate on Twitter a couple weeks ago with me and my friend.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he uses hot water in his KoolAid.
I can see the logic in hot water because sugar dissolves immensely better in hot water. Like I could see the idea of using hot water, mixing the KoolAid, and then putting in the refrigerator to chill. That seems like that would work much better than using cold, but you wouldn't be able to drink it immediately unless you like hot KoolAid.
Exactly.
but that I see the logic. I see the logic in hot water. Matter of fact, I think that's a better way to make it. If I ever did that, though, my in-laws or my family would like disown me. Like, what are you doing? He didn't go crazy. He's using hot water.
All right. Question number 3. Give me your top 5 favorite artists. Not rappers, artists. You could use rappers, of course, but artists in general.
Like of all time?
Of all time.
Jeez, okay, wow. Man, it's like Michael Jackson, Prince. Who else do I love? Like, damn, like Luther. Oh my God. Luther might be the best vocalist.
Yeah.
Maybe ever. Maybe ever. He's so, man, the way he could just blow away ballads is just amazing to me.
And I will say something about that to add to that. He is one of the best vocalists ever, and he is still underrated.
Yes, that's the crazy part about it. Is Luther is an amazing vocalist, and he never really got his due. If you look at somebody like a Whitney Houston, who people were like told her, "Hey, you might be the best vocalist ever," and I don't really feel like Luther got that pub, not the pub that he deserved, not while he was alive. Maybe one day. You know, Anita Baker, who, man, I love her too. She's amazing.
Yeah,
She's
I
amazing.
agree.
And we're gonna throw a rapper in there. We're gonna throw in Jay because I love me some Jay. Like I can listen to Jay every day. Every day. Every day. I think that's a solid 5. It's a little weird, but whatever.
That's a good 5. I give that's a really good solid list, truthfully speaking. All right. Question number 4. Nikes or Reeboks?
Oh man, checks over everything. Checks over everything. Matter of fact, I'm a pretty big shoe head anyway, so I don't have any. I mean, I have some other shoes, but it's like 90+ % Nikes. Like I rarely wear anything else other than some kick around shoes. You know, I might have some Adidas in there. They kick around shoes, but for the most part, it's Nikes. Nikes.
Okay. I like that answer. Question number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Thanos comes to Earth.
Right.
With the gauntlet, stones, the whole shabazz. You can pick 5 superheroes to take out Thanos. Anybody you want from any universe you want. Who are you picking?
Ooh. They got to be superheroes?
Does not have to be superheroes.
Because I was going to say, I feel like Darkseid will be like itching for some Thanos.
Okay, I like that.
But
I like that.
I'm worried what would happen after the
that's a good
point. But yes, I feel if I had to pick heroes, somebody who's going to do good.
You can pick Darkseid. You can pick Darkseid.
I like the idea of Darkseid. If we're just going purely on who I think could beat him, Darkseid is that guy. I feel like if I put together Darkseid and Superman together, I feel like it's going to be a wrap. I mean, like if you put together like an elite level, cosmic level team of somebody like, you know, Darkseid, Superman, you know, Blue Marvel, Hyperion. I mean, even with the gauntlet, these niggas gonna be a problem.
Yeah, that's a good point.
These dudes gonna be a problem, you know, because that's what the problem with MCU. Most of MCU's fighters are ground level guys. You bring in the gauntlet, and it's like, what do we do? Like, I'm used to fighting criminals.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like,
you know, but
I'm used to punching my way out of problems.
Exactly. You can't punch your, I mean, you could, but Captain America, and he can't fight Thanos. Hell, the Hulk couldn't, not the MCU Hulk, you know? So, yeah, I'll put together a team of like cosmic level guys and pray for the best. You know what I'm saying? We get Darkseid and Superman and Blue Marvel and Hyperion and throw in, I don't know, who else?
One more.
Oh, man. I had some guys at the tip of my tongue, and then I can't remember. What's the guy with the hair that they
Adam Warlock?
Yes, Adam Warlock. And then boom, we good. We're good. We didn't save the earth. We got blown to shit, but we won. I won. Thank you.
I feel you. So, what's been going on with you, brother, before we get into what we're going to talk about?
Oh, man. Well, you know, with the cut, I don't really know what's going on, man. Everybody burnt. We burnt. I'm burnt. I got a new gig. I got the baby. I got, you know, one mic, and all that stuff is just like, nigga, I'm tired. They tired. I don't know what we're gonna do, but I feel like I need the outlet. So I'm like, I'm damn near like at the point where I want to like sell my services. Like, hey, anybody want me to just come on your podcast and act silly? I promise I'll do that. That's all I want to do. I'll be needing an outlet for like, because one mic doesn't provide that. One mic is someone else's story. You know what I'm saying? One mic is someone else's story, but I'll be wanting to go out and tell, and tell my foolishness, my story. So and I feel like it's possible I could give them time and we could get the cut going again. But for the major thing, I think we talked about this a little bit. I need somebody else to do this shit. Like, I just need to be voice talent. Like the heavy lifting, like I don't mind hosting, paying the bills because the bills are cheap. You know what I'm saying? And one mic makes enough money to pay for those bills. But the idea of me coming up with the ideas and running it and, hey, we get together this time and wrangling all these niggas, no. No. I can't. And on Saturdays, the days that we usually tape, I want to spend that shit with my son. And he don't slow down for nobody. Like, he not going to be like, hey, little dude, I need to tape. He don't take that as an answer.
That's a good point.
You didn't take that. Really so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but like I said, one mic is doing great, and I got a new gig. So like as of right now, I have no real complaints. I could find complaints like politics or something, but in my life, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm in a good place.
I think you touched on something. It's one of the reasons why I don't do many ensemble podcasts, because it's difficult to get everybody together at one time to record. Like I do garbage.
And even if you do get them together, everybody got their own minds, everybody got their own brain. See, with one mic, I can write my script. I can write my script while I'm at work. And then I can tape while my son's asleep. You know what I'm saying? So because it's just me, I do what I want when I want to do it. And I don't have to fight with you like, oh man, what's the name can't show up because he, furniture shopping with his wife. I don't get any of that because it's all on my time. If I want to hurry up and bang out 3 episodes like I did the Tulsa Massacre episode, I just do that shit, because it's my time. So
let's talk about that, because I think I'm glad you brought that up. Tulsa Massacre has been a hot topic for, I want to say, at least over a year now.
Yeah, it's been about a year now.
Because the Watchmen episode came out. We may have talked about this last year, and I think about it. Last time you were on, we probably talked about this.
Yeah,
but
I think
nobody knew about this incident, apparently. Well, let me rephrase that. White America, in general, didn't know about this incident at all.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So now, with Juneteenth coming back on, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, you're hearing all these stories about things in history that's happened to Black Americans and how the whole narrative that has been told for so long about, hey, Black Americans need to get up by their bootstraps and do for themselves.
Right.
Then you kind of see, hey, y'all destroyed a whole town of Black people who would do it for themselves. And this is not just one occurrence. This happened in multiple cities. So it's just fascinating to see how those things transpired and how systematically it's been a system that kind of been set up so Black Americans can't succeed.
No, they don't want you to. They never wanted you to succeed. And one of the interesting things about the Tulsa Massacre is that it was one of the only riots, because during this time period is called the low point in race relations. It's a time period in the 1877, right after Reconstruction, till about the 1930s. At this point, race relations were at their worst, if you can believe that. But race relations between white and Black people were at their worst. We had multiple race riots. Lynchings actually went down because they were lynching less white people. But because they were primarily lynching African Americans for attempting to assert their political rights. So when you get something like Tulsa, even through all of these riots, was the only time they actually just leveled an entire town. You know what I'm saying? What was left of Tulsa was nothing. They had 2,000 homes. All of them had been destroyed. 2,000 homes. Every Black resident in Greenwood was relocated. And then they wanted to turn it into, they wanted to have it rezoned industrial so they could never come back.
Wow.
They tried to turn it into actually they did. They turned it into a railway station, and now they built a highway through it, split it in half. They never wanted people of Tulsa to ever come back, you know. And one of the things that, let me before we move on, one of the things that I think it's important to understand about Black Wall Street is that Black Wall Street was not a Wall Street as we know it. It's not, there were no stocks and bonds being traded. It was mostly about black businesses. And because Tulsa was completely segregated, like they made laws that made it so if 2/3 of another race lived in the area, you could not live in that area. So it completely segregated white Tulsa and Greenwood. And what that meant for the people of Greenwood, for the merchants of Greenwood, is that they had a completely captive audience. You could not go to white Tulsa and go shopping. So that meant that the Black dollar was recycled within Greenwood up to 16 times within that. But it also meant that they were completely almost beholden to white Tulsans because the jobs they worked were, most of the worker levels were doing domestic service jobs. They worked domestic service. I think 92% of women in Tulsa and Greenwood work domestic service jobs. 38% of men, 75% of all Black people. That's a huge amount. So while they were completely separate economically, they were like this. They were buddies. You know what I'm saying? And they needed each other, even though white Tulsans were jealous, extremely jealous of, you know, black Tulsans, and felt as though they didn't earn it and that they must have earned it through illegal means. So burning it to the ground and taking their things was just setting the scales, balancing the scales.
Let me ask you this, because I think this is an interesting topic and conversation we stumbled onto.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think cases like Tulsa and things that's happened throughout history, because let's just call a spade. In terms of reparations, slavery is pretty much off the table.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna make every excuse not to give reparations for slavery, and they have made every excuse for that. But when you look at situations like Tulsa, then you look at the 80s and the incarceration of Black Panthers and things like that, and the pumping drugs to the inner city communities that was done by government.
Right.
Do you think African Americans have a fair case with just that stuff alone for reparations?
I think certainly the people of the towns at which they had riots. So they had riots, and I mean, you've seen it. That meme with all those riots that happened. That's a lot of cities. Those people at least have a case for reparations. If you are descended from Tulsa during that time, you should definitely have a case. And there is a lawsuit for reparations for the people descendants of Greenwood. Outside of that, like I don't know if you can make a case for the Black people at large unless you could tie your lineage to some kind of disaster or wrongdoing done by the American government. I don't know if
mass incarceration. Let's put it up.
Yeah. I don't know if mass incarceration or pumping drugs into the Black community, because it's so faceless. You know what I'm saying? It's so like, yeah, that happened to my brother-in-law, so I should get paid. Like, without you being able to put a transgression with a person, I feel like you'll never get reparations. And I think that's the one of the things with problems with slavery is, even if you were to say, okay, we want to give you, some ridiculous sum of money, you know what I'm saying? Who decides who get what? You know what I'm saying?
That was my next question. What do you think qualifies as reparations? Does reparations necessarily have to be monetarily? Can it be property? Can it be opportunity?
I think the only way that you could do it is it would have to be a combination of monetary opportunities, because for Black people, our oppression didn't come through just monetary means. We had oppression at every single turn. You had restrictive covenants when you tried to buy a house. You had redlining. You had physical violence and racism when you tried to vote. So all of these things that happened, you had race riots, you had things like Tulsa. All these things that happened, they are a combination of things that lead to oppression. So our reparations should not just be monetary. It should be a combination of things to counterbalance those scales. So, I mean, we should be, it should be things like low cost loans for housing. It should be money. It should be, free colleges. That's what, as a matter of fact, I think that's some of the stuff that's the most important. The most important thing here is the pathway to bringing yourself up out of poverty is opportunities and the ability to get opportunities. So first and foremost, Black people should be given free education. Like that shouldn't even be a question. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't, like outside of you giving reparations, Black people should be going to college for free just for the bullshit you do today. You know what I'm saying? Like the bullshit you do on white folks do on a Tuesday. This American government is done on a Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? If you really want to balance the scale, or you really want to say that, pull yourself up out of bootstraps, look at what the Asians doing, you need to do better. You know what I'm saying? Give us opportunity. You should be allowing Black folks to go to college for free. That bill should be getting paid by the American people. And outside of that, if you want to give us money, I kind of don't like the idea of giving people money, because I feel like that's the thing that people are going to point to when they say, that's why you don't deserve this. You know what I'm saying? They're going to point to the money. They're not going to point to the education. They're going to say, we gave you $50 million. Now get on out of our face. And that's not enough. Like you hurt generations of Black people. So generations of Black people to come should be reaping the benefits of this. You know what I'm saying? You can't give me $50,000 and then say that my son doesn't deserve it or his son doesn't deserve it. You know what I'm saying? My granddaddy and his granddaddy had to deal with your bullshit.
Yeah, and your granddaddy and our ancestors deal with that bullshit kind of puts us in the situation that we are in today.
Exactly. So this should be a thing. Whatever it is, should be multi-generational. Like. It shouldn't just be for me, people that are living. It should be people for and your descendants. This is why I'm big on free education, low cost loans, business loans. You should be like them people in that PPP loan, nigga. You can go ahead and have that. Go ahead and keep that money. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a cost of doing business for the bullshit I had to do, all the stuff you done to me, and you worry about this damn loan.
They definitely worry about that loan.
No, they get that money back. They coming to get your ass. And on a side note, I looked at the website. I went to my wife's hometown. We saw some names on there that we know, that I know. Addressed to the projects. talking about they got a taxi cab service. I was like, Lord, you going to jail, boo-boo. Like, I know you ain't got no business. I'm like, this a problem. I mean, like I said, I don't want to see nobody go to jail, but nah, homie, they coming to get that money. They're gonna audit every one of them things. They're gonna audit every single one of them things. And now you want to get federal charges on you because you got $9,000.
Ain't worth it.
Not worth it. It's stupid.
Beyond stupid.
Yeah, it's beyond stupid. And honestly, I thought about the possibility of doing that shit for the podcast. I was like, man, the podcast, hey, I want a loan. I got a legitimate business enterprise. Then I realized you had to have employees. And I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I could legitimately say, hey, let me get I could put this in some advertising. I could buy a new laptop, buy some better equipment. Hey, this is a business enterprise. You just have to help me get off the floor.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And
It does make perfect sense, but they would have been like, nah, I'm gonna need my chippers back. Like, you bought a computer.
So let's talk about it. For those who don't know, What is Juneteenth?
Oh, wow.
Let's get right into it.
I know, right? Juneteenth is an interesting holiday. Juneteenth is actually that wasn't really the day, but it's the month that the Union Army came to Galveston, Texas, and issued Order Number 3, which is basically telling the slaves within Texas that they were henceforth free, and that now you and your pact between slavery between you and your master is now employer. So you free. You can do what the hell you want to do. The problem with Juneteenth is that even at that point, most African Americans weren't immediately free because the slave owners and the slaves knew. They were aware. Like the story with Juneteenth is that they didn't have any idea. The news didn't get there. Nah, they knew for years that slaves were being freed through the Emancipation Proclamation. The problem is you couldn't leave. If you couldn't leave, your ass would end up on the end of a rope if you left. And that happened even after Order Number 3 came from the Union Army. They had to figure out how they were going to tell them the slaves, and then sometimes waited into the next harvest before they told them that they were henceforth free, or now that you can go. It sucked. It was not. It seems when you read it how you ended up with a celebration at the end of this. But
that's kind of wild.
But once again, the Black story is a story of perseverance. And the very next year, they were celebrating Jubilee Day, which is another name for Juneteenth. They were celebrating Jubilee Day, which and celebrating them being free and remembering their ancestors and how far they've come and what the future holds for them. So once again, Black people persevering through bullshit.
Well, let's not tell the whole story about it because I want people to go listen to your podcast and you're doing an episode on it. But yeah, I think the whole story is fascinating. If you're going to hear the whole story about it, go listen to One Mic, Black History Podcast. Check it out. It's an awesome podcast. You should be listening to it anyway if you want to know anything about Black history. But I think you do a great job of telling that story to people and opening up people's eyes, something they don't know. So let me ask you this, getting more into this. It's become more of a discussion today on Black Americans celebrating Juneteenth now. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
It's funny because prior to my education about Juneteenth, I thought it did make sense that we celebrated the liberation of people in Texas. Because of course, I live in North Carolina, and we didn't. We were liberated rather early, and early parts of Juneteenth or Jubilee Day or Black People's Independence was celebrated differently across the nation. Everybody wasn't celebrating on June 19th, so I thought it was weird that Black people across the nation celebrated the day that people in Texas were freed. But now through a little bit of my education, it is, once again, it's a story of perseverance and Black people celebrating, kind of our commonality and our ability to grit through all this bullshit. And that brings us to the day when you have things like George Floyd and all of these things about protests, about police violence and racism. And it put like a huge spotlight on things like Juneteenth because there are very few holidays. And even though Juneteenth isn't a national holiday, it's very few it's celebrated on a national level. Very few holidays that are like exclusively Black. It's Black. So things like Juneteenth gets a added light because it's a day for us to celebrate and for us to kind of shine a light on the bullshit that we're still going through in this country. You know what I'm saying? Because even Juneteenth, the holiday, is basically a celebration of our coming out of enslavement. So
yeah, it's crazy how we have to celebrate that.
Like You think we'd have a better holiday? You think we'd have a better holiday? But I like the idea of it, and I like the idea of us forcing them to turn it into a national holiday because it forces them to recognize the country's racist history. You know what I'm saying? If you without making it a holiday, it's kind of easy to ignore it, but making it a national holiday every single year that holiday comes around, you're talking about it, you're mentioning it. You know what I'm saying? People are having celebrations. It's a constant reminder to Americans, Black Americans, and white Americans of the country's racist history. This country's built on free labor. It's built on free labor.
So let me ask you a question, since you mentioned that. What do you think about how there are like schools saying they're not going to teach the history of America, essentially, in terms of like slavery and stuff like that? I think that's been a hot topic as of late. You know, there are some schools in certain states is like, hey, we're not adding that to our curriculum.
You know, being somebody who studies history, and it's primarily Black history, I think it's bullshit because history is what it is. History does not have a bias. You don't get to edit out history just because it makes you feel uncomfortable. The history is what it is. If you don't like the history, or you don't like what America has done, you need to be upset with your forefathers. Don't be upset at the history itself, because that's not at fault here. The blame lies with your forefathers. And if you don't like it, you should be looking to try to change moving forward. But to attempt to whitewash history, which is things that they've done for 100 plus, 200 plus years, attempt to whitewash your history just because it makes you uncomfortable, it's fucking bullshit. It's complete bullshit. And it's not right. It's not right. And this is one of the reasons why I do the podcast. This is one of the reasons why I do One Mic, is because even before this, Black history was like, oh, that happened, I had no idea. But now it's like, almost feels like a war against it. So a war against your own history because you don't like it.
It feels like the more they talk about how they don't want to teach it in the curriculum, the more people find it. And the more people like, I'll give you an example of that, how I find it interesting and fascinating how people like Malcolm X their speeches and things are being used to validate their points and their opinions. Like anytime, and this is getting a little political, anytime Republicans want to say something about Democrats, they always put that Malcolm X quote, the speech, what he's saying about white Democrats and stuff like that.
Or another one, the Party of Lincoln, which is another one that they throw out constantly. Matter of fact, I think I heard your boy say that a couple times.
I think he might have.
Yeah, I think I feel like he did say that. But anyway, one of the things that I hate is the whitewashing or the gentrification of former Black leaders, people who aren't here today. You don't see that so much with Malcolm X, because a lot of Malcolm X quotes are like super militant. But even now, you still see that some of Malcolm X. But you really see a lot with Martin Luther King. You know what I'm saying? And people like to point to Martin Luther King and tell people, Black folks, Martin Luther King didn't he didn't protest. He didn't protest. He didn't violently protest. He was he was a peaceful protest person, and that he was all about peace and turning the other cheek. And I would say that the same thing that you guys say about Black people today, they said about Martin Luther King in the 60s. Like this, there's nothing new under the sun. Your complaints about violent protests and Martin Luther King were being made in the newspapers in the 60s. just like you're doing today. Once again, you whitewashed our histories, and you like to look through a different lens, or a 2020 lens, and look back on him fondly, or quote him on his birthday, or his, saying on his holiday. But he wasn't that way. And honestly, he wasn't like none of you motherfuckers. He wasn't like none of y'all.
Yeah.
and close to death. Like one thing I do like, one thing I like Martin Luther King said near the end is that it didn't cost people nothing, or it cost the government very little to change, to give, do the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act. But changing classism, you know what I'm saying? Giving Black folks not reparations, but helping them come up out of poverty, stopping, fighting against wars. It's the sort of thing that got him killed. Like when you were just fighting for equal rights or Civil Rights Act, that was fine. But the moment that you started talking about, classism and the Vietnam War, that was like a year later. I think this was like 67-ish. And a year later, he was dead. So
as accurate. Once he started speaking for everybody, and breaking down the system for what it was, like no, it's a classism system, and hey, the little people, even the little white people, are getting shitted on, and they're kind of playing both sides of the thing. That's when they like, no, you got to go, and that's kind of how it always works. Once people kind of like show America the wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, that person is gone.
Like, oh man, he's saying too much. Not to bring this all the way back around, but when Juneteenth was dying, one of the reasons where Juneteenth came back into prominence was because of Martin Luther King. Because Martin Luther King was trying to do his poor people's movement, which was trying to shine a light on the classism in America. And 1968, he died. He was shot, assassinated. Let me get that out. Yeah, assassinated. Ralph Abernathy, Coretta Scott King decided they were going to push forth with the poor people's movement, and they decided they were going to do it on Juneteenth, 1968. So what ended up happening is they had the Poor People's Movement, the second March on Washington. 50,000 people showed up, and they took the celebration of Juneteenth back to their communities. And at that point, Juneteenth was dying, and they took that back to the communities and started celebrating. So Martin Luther King, his Poor People movement, his fight against classism is the reason why we celebrate Juneteenth today. So full circle, coming back all the way back around, bringing it back in.
My brother, that is how you end a podcast. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Man, it's been a blast. Thank you for coming on, brother. Let them know where to find your podcast at, and more importantly, how to check out this Juneteenth episode, because I think there's going to be a lot of knowledge on there, a lot of information on there that people need to hear.
All right. So you can find me, OneMicHistory.com. I am on all major platforms. You can also find me at One Mic History on YouTube. But more importantly, I'm going to be dropping a Juneteenth episode next week on June 17th. I know that's not June 19th, but June 19th is on a Saturday. So I'm giving you a little buffer. You can learn about Juneteenth and then celebrate Juneteenth on June 19th. So coming up this week, it's going to be awesome. I'm gonna give you the full history on Juneteenth, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
So if you're listening to this episode right now, go directly to that One Mic episode and listen to that. Just scoot right on over there. Get your history in, learn some knowledge, learn some facts, then celebrate Juneteenth.
Exactly. And I promise I'm gonna keep it short. I'm gonna give you 13, 15 good minutes, and we getting on out of here so you can learn and go about your rest of your day.
I guarantee you it will be shorter than my episode 200.
Yeah.
And with that said, Delvin Cox Experience, we are out. Peace.